Have you ever felt like you're carrying a huge weight on your shoulders, but when you look, there's nothing there? It's not physical, but it feels just as heavy, just as real. This is the invisible weight of emotional armor, something many of us wear every single day without even realizing it. Let's talk about what this armor is. It's the tough exterior we build to protect ourselves from getting hurt. Maybe you grew up in a family where showing vulnerability was seen as weakness. Or perhaps a past relationship or a deep betrayal taught you that opening up only leads to pain. So you started building a wall, brick by brick. A sarcastic comment here, and I'm fine there, a busy schedule to avoid deep conversations. Each one is another layer of protection. This armor serves a purpose, right? It keeps us safe. It helps us navigate a world that can sometimes feel harsh and unforgiving. When someone criticizes you, the armor deflects the blow. When you face disappointment, it helps you keep a stoic face and move on. It's our survival mechanism, our personal bodyguard that stands between our soft, vulnerable heart and the unpredictable world. And for a while, it works. We feel strong in control, untouchable. We might even get praise for being so resilient or put together. People see us as the one who always has it figured out, the rock in any storm. And that feels good, doesn't it? It reinforces the idea that this armor is necessary, that it's who we are. But here's the thing about armor. It's heavy. Really heavy. And carrying it around 24/7 is utterly exhausting. Think about a soldier wearing a full suit of metal armor. They might be protected in battle, but can they run freely, feel the warmth of the sun on their skin, or receive a gentle hug? No. The very thing that protects them also isolates them, restricts them, and weighs them down. That's what our emotional armor does to us. It doesn't just block out pain. It blocks out everything. It numbs us not only to the bad, but also to the good. The joy of a genuine connection, the warmth of true intimacy, the relief of being truly seen. This constant state of defense requires an incredible amount of energy. It's like running a background app on your phone that drains the battery life. You're always on alert, analyzing situations, managing your expressions, and choosing your words carefully to maintain the facade. You might find yourself exhausted at the end of the day, even if you haven't done much physically. That's the emotional labor of wearing your armor. It's a silent, relentless drain on your life force. The exhaustion shows up in different ways. For some, it's chronic fatigue or physical tension in the neck and shoulders. For others, it's a sense of detachment, feeling like you're just going through the motions of your own life. You might be in a room full of people but feel completely alone. You laugh at the jokes, you participate in conversations, but underneath it all, there's a hollowness, a disconnect. You're watching your life from behind a thick, soundproof wall. And the loneliness is profound. The armor that was supposed to protect you ends up creating the very isolation you feared. It tells you, you're on your own. No one can be trusted. You have to handle this by yourself. It pushes people away, not because you want to, but because you don't know how to let them in. You crave connection, but your own defenses make it impossible. So what do? How do we start to take off this heavy, suffocating armor without feeling completely exposed and terrified? The first step is awareness. Just recognizing that you're wearing armor is a huge breakthrough. Acknowledge its weight. Acknowledge the exhaustion it causes. Be gentle with yourself. You built this armor for a good reason. To survive. Thank it for the protection it provided. It helped you get to where you are today, but now you can choose a different way. The process of taking off the armor is not about suddenly becoming a defenseless, open wound. It's a gradual, careful process. It's about learning to be selectively vulnerable. It's about finding safe spaces and safe people with whom you can start to take off one piece of armor at a time. This could start with something small. Maybe it's admitting to a trusted friend that you're not fine, that you're actually struggling. Maybe it's sharing a small insecurity or a fear just to see what happens. You might be surprised. Often, when we show a little bit of our true selves, people don't run away. They lean in. Our vulnerability gives them permission to be vulnerable too, and that's where real connection is born. Therapy can be an incredibly powerful tool in this journey. A good therapist provides a safe, non-judgmental space where you can explore the reasons you built your armor in the first place. They can help you develop new, healthier coping mechanisms and guide you as you practice taking down your walls at a pace that feels right for you. It's like having a skilled blacksmith help you carefully dismantle the armor instead of trying to rip it off all at once. Another powerful practice is self-compassion. Instead of criticizing yourself for being guarded, treat yourself with the same kindness you would offer a friend. When you feel the instinct to put up a wall, pause. Take a deep breath. Ask yourself, what am I afraid of right now? What do I really need? Sometimes the answer isn't more protection, but more kindness, more understanding, more self-love. It's also about redefining strength. True strength isn't about being impenetrable. It isn't about never feeling pain or never needing help. True strength is the courage to be authentic. It's the resilience to feel your emotions, the good and the bad, and know that you can handle them. It's the bravery to take off the mask and say, this is me, all of me. Shedding the armor is a journey, not a destination. There will be days when you feel brave enough to walk around without it, and there will be days when you feel the need to put a piece or two back on, and that's okay. The goal isn't perfection, it's progress. It's about choosing connection over protection, authenticity over performance, more and more often. Imagine what your life could be like without that constant weight. Imagine the energy you would have, the freedom you would feel. Imagine forming relationships based on genuine understanding and acceptance. Imagine feeling the full spectrum of life, the deep sorrows and the ecstatic joys, without a filter. It's possible. It's a path toward a lighter, more vibrant, and more connected way of living. It's the path back to yourself. So I invite you to just take a moment, check in with yourself. How heavy is your armor today? And maybe, just maybe, you can find one small piece you're willing to set down. Thank you for spending this time with me. If this resonated with you, I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments. Don't forget to like this video and subscribe for more conversations like this. Take care of yourselves, and I'll see you in the next one. Have you ever been told you're the strong one? The reliable one? The one who always has it together? It's meant as a compliment, but for many of us, it feels like a life sentence. A heavy weight we carry every single day. Today, we're going to talk about the hidden cost of being always strong, why it's so exhausting, and what it truly does to our minds and bodies. Our nervous system is supposed to work like a pendulum. When we face a challenge, it swings into fight or flight mode. Our heart rate goes up, we're alert, ready to act. Then, once the threat is gone, it should swing back to rest and digest mode, allowing our body to recover. But for the person who's always strong, the pendulum gets stuck. We start to see threats everywhere, not just physical ones, but the threat of failing, of being seen as weak, of letting someone down. So our body stays in a constant low-grade state of alert. We're always bracing for the next impact. This constant bracing shows up in our bodies. Maybe you clench your jaw without realizing it. Maybe your shoulders are always tight, creeping up towards your ears. Your breathing becomes shallow, trapped in your chest instead of filling your belly. Your digestion might be off because your body is prioritizing survival over everything else. Over time, this state of chronic stress becomes your new normal. You might not even remember what it feels like to be truly, deeply relaxed. The armor you wear isn't just heavy. It has become your posture. And living this way, in a state of constantly holding on, is like driving a car with the parking brake permanently on. It's draining your energy, every single second. The breaking point for the strong one is rarely a big, dramatic explosion. It's usually something small, something seemingly insignificant. I remember standing in the grocery store just staring at a wall of pasta sauce. I was trying to decide which one to buy and my brain just shut down. It felt like a computer with a full hard drive. I couldn't process one more tiny decision. It wasn't about the sauce, of course. It was about everything else, the months of juggling a demanding job, caring for a sick family member, the endless to-do lists. I had been holding it all together for so long, and a simple jar of marinara was the thing that finally broke me. This is a classic example of what psychologists call ego depletion. Think of your self-control and emotional strength as a finite resource, like a well of water. The always strong person is constantly drawing from that well to manage their own feelings and support everyone else. Eventually, the well runs dry. The body and mind simply say, I can't do this anymore. It's not a sign of weakness. It's a sign of an immense, unsustainable effort. It's your system's way of waving a white flag and begging for a break. And here's the most painful paradox of being the strong one. The very quality that makes people rely on you is the same one that isolates you. We build deep, meaningful connections with others through vulnerability. It's in those moments of saying, I'm scared or I am not okay, that true intimacy is born. But when you're always the giver of strength and never the receiver, the relationship becomes imbalanced. You become a pillar. People admire pillars, they lean on them, but they don't hug them. They don't check to see if the pillar is cracking under the pressure. People project their own assumptions onto you. They assume that because you're capable, you must be okay. Because you're always listening, you don't need to be heard. Without meaning to, the strong one trains their loved ones that they don't have needs. You build a fortress to protect yourself and everyone else, but a fortress by its very design keeps people out. I once dated someone for 2 years who never really knew the real me. She knew the version of me who could solve any problem, the one who was always calm and steady. And she loved that version. But the moment I tried to show her the anxious, uncertain parts of myself, the parts that were scared of failure or unsure about the future, she got uncomfortable. It was like I was breaking the unwritten rules of our relationship. We broke up not long after, and it confirmed my deepest fear. If I show you the real weight I'm carrying, you'll leave. This creates a devastating feedback loop. You feel unseen and lonely, so you tentatively try to be vulnerable. But the other person, so used to you being the rock, doesn't know how to respond. They might pull away or change the subject. So you retreat back into your fortress, convinced that vulnerability is dangerous. The armor gets thicker, and the loneliness deepens. You're surrounded by people who depend on you, yet you feel completely and utterly alone. At its core, the always strong identity is built on an illusion, the illusion of control. We tell ourselves that if we can just manage everything, anticipate every problem, and hold it all together, then nothing bad will happen. We believe that control will keep us safe and make us worthy. But life is, by its very nature, uncontrollable. You can't control what other people do. You can't control illness or accidents. You can't control the economy. Trying to control the uncontrollable is a rigged game, and it's exhausting. When the inevitable happens, a layoff, a betrayal, a loss, it doesn't just hurt, it shatters your entire worldview. This is where the popular advice to fake it till you make it becomes truly dangerous. As a short-term trick to get through a tough presentation, maybe it works. But as a long-term life strategy, it's a recipe for burnout. Faking it forces you to split yourself in two. There's the performing self, the calm, capable one on the outside, and the inner self, the one who is tired, scared, and struggling. The bigger the gap between these two selves, the more energy it takes to maintain the performance. You're not just faking it till you make it. You're faking it until you break. True strength isn't about never falling. It's about having the courage to be seen in your imperfection. It's about letting the armor down, even just a little. It's about learning to let your nervous system swing back to rest. It's about reaching out and saying, I can't do this alone. That isn't weakness. That is the bravest, strongest thing you can do. If this resonated with you, you are not alone. Thank you so much for watching and for being a part of this community. Drop a comment below if you've ever felt this way. And if you know someone who's the strong one, maybe share this with them. It might be the permission they need to finally take a breath. Don't forget to subscribe for more conversations like this. See you next time. I see executives, caregivers, high performers who come in and say, I have everything, so why do I feel so empty? They have built these incredible lives on the outside, but on the inside, they are living in a shack. They have been faking it for so long they have lost touch with who they actually are. They don't know what they feel anymore because they have been overriding their feelings for decades. The control they thought they had was just a very elaborate, very exhausting performance. The performance is unsustainable. The energy required to keep the two selves separate eventually runs out. And when it does, the collapse isn't just about being tired. It's about identity dissolution. If I am not the strong one, who am I? The crack appears differently for everyone. For some, it is a sudden dramatic event. For others, it is a slow awakening, a creeping realization that the walls are closing in. These are the moments when the armor proves it is not, in fact, unbreakable. I sat in the driveway for 20 minutes. I could see the lights on in the house. I could see my kids running past the window. And I couldn't go in. I physically could not open the car door. It wasn't that I didn't love them. It was that I had nothing left to give. The tank was empty. I had spent all day at work being the confident manager, solving everyone's problems. And I had zero left for the people I loved most. That was the crack. Realizing that the person I was outside the house was stealing from the person I needed to be inside the house. I was in a yoga class of all places. Trying to be healthy, trying to self-care. And the teacher said, let go of everything that does not serve you. And I just broke. Because I realized I had no idea what served me. I had spent 15 years serving everyone else, my husband, my kids, my parents, my boss. I had built my entire identity on being useful to others. If I let go of everything that didn't serve me, what would be left? I was terrified to find out there might be nothing. These cracks are terrifying, but they are also invitations. The armor has been pierced. Light gets in. And for the first time, the possibility of a different way of being becomes visible. The breaking is not the end. It is the beginning of the unbuilding. It is the painful, messy, terrifying process of taking off the armor piece by rusty piece. After the crack, after the admission that I can't do this alone, comes a unique phenomenon. Researcher and author Brown famously calls it the vulnerability hangover. You share a piece of your true self, you admit you're struggling. You cry in front of someone, you ask for help, and the moment it leaves your mouth, a wave of shame and panic crashes over you. Oh no, I said too much, I look weak. They will never see me the same way again. I need to take it back. Dr. Anya Sharma said, "The vulnerability hangover is the ego's last-ditch effort to maintain the old structure." The armor is so familiar that its absence feels dangerous, even though the armor was the thing causing the pain. When we are vulnerable, we are stepping out from behind the fortress walls into an open field. We feel exposed. Our brain interprets this exposure as a threat and floods us with go back, go back, go back signals. This is the critical juncture. This is where most people retreat. The discomfort of the hangover is so intense that they run back to the familiar patterns of control and isolation. They put the armor back on, maybe adding a few extra plates to cover the new cracks. But those who can sit with the discomfort, those who can tolerate the feeling of being seen, discover something revolutionary. The first time I told a friend I was struggling, I immediately wanted to throw up. I said, "Actually, I'm not okay." And I thought, what have I done? He's going to think I'm pathetic. But he just looked at me and said, "Yeah, me too, man. It's been rough." And in that moment, the loneliest I had ever felt, I felt less alone. The thing I was most terrified of being seen as weak turned out to be the thing that connected me to another human being. The vulnerability hangover fades when it is met with acceptance. When we risk showing our fragility and the other person doesn't run away, doesn't judge, but simply stays present, the armor begins to lose its adhesive power. We learn slowly that being weak does not mean being destroyed. If the armor is built through conditioning, can it be unbuilt? The answer, thanks to the science of neuroplasticity, is a resounding yes. The brain is not a static machine. It is a dynamic garden. Dr. James Thorne said, "Neuroplasticity simply means that the brain can change its structure and function in response to experience. The always strong pathways, the automatic I'm fine, the suppression of tears, the clenching of the jaw are like well-trodden trails in a forest. They are easy to walk because they are so familiar. Letting go means deliberately forging a new trail. At first, it is overgrown, hard to find, and difficult to navigate. But every time you choose a different response, every time you say, I need help instead of I'm fine, you strengthen that new pathway. Letting go, therefore, is not a one-time event. It is a practice. It is a series of micro-choices made daily to release the grip. It involves consciously moving from the sympathetic brace to the parasympathetic release. It involves breathing deeply into the belly to signal safety to the nervous system. The science also points to the importance of interoception, the ability to sense the internal state of your body. The always strong individual is often disconnected from their body. They override hunger, ignore fatigue, and suppress pain. Learning to let go requires tuning back in. We have to rebuild the mind-body connection. A simple practice is to pause several times a day and just ask, what am I feeling right now in my body? Not in your head, but in your body. Is there tightness, heat, cold, heaviness? Just noticing, without judgment, is the first step in releasing. Because you cannot let go of a tension you don't know you are holding. Knowing that we can change is one thing. Knowing how is another. The process of letting go is deeply personal, but there are common tools that can help pry apart the rusted joints of the armor. For the always strong, boundaries feel selfish. They are not. Boundaries are the definition of the self. Letting go means letting go of the responsibility for everyone else's feelings. It means saying, I love you, but I cannot solve this for you. It means recognizing that being a rock means you are also immobile. You cannot move forward if you are holding up everyone else. I learned to say, I don't have the capacity for that right now. The first few times my voice shook. I felt like I was committing a crime. But I noticed the world didn't end. People figured things out without me. It was humbling and liberating. I realized I wasn't as indispensable as I thought. And that was a relief. Underneath the armor, there is often a deep well of unfelt grief. Grief for the childhood you didn't have. Grief for the relationships that failed. Grief for the parts of yourself you sacrificed on the altar of strength. Letting go means allowing yourself to mourn. It means sitting with the sadness instead of fixing it. It means letting the tears come, not as a breakdown, but as a release. Tears contain stress hormones. Crying is a physiological release. When we hold back tears, we are literally retaining stress in our bodies. Allowing yourself to cry in a safe place is not weakness. It is detoxification, not the rest of productivity, the nap, so you can work harder, but the rest of being, doing nothing without guilt, letting the mind wander. This type of rest activates the default mode network of the brain, which is crucial for processing emotions, consolidating memories, and fostering creativity. For the person who is always on, this type of rest feels terrifyingly wasteful. It is in fact essential. These tools are not about becoming weak. They are about becoming real. They are about trading the rigid, brittle strength of the armor for the resilient, flexible strength of well-tended skin and muscle. What happens when you finally let go? You do not dissolve. You do not become useless. You become human. And in that humanity, you discover a new kind of strength. Strength now, for me, is honesty. It's telling my kids when I'm tired. It's admitting to my wife that I'm scared about the future. It's asking my friend for advice instead of giving it. And you know what? The foundation is stronger now. Because it's not just me holding it up anymore. There are other people holding it with me. I used to think strength was being everything to everyone. Now I think strength is knowing who I am when I'm alone, and I like her. She's softer than I thought. She's more creative. She laughs more. Letting go of this strong woman act. Let the real woman breathe. I still carry weight. Life is heavy. But I don't carry it the same way. I don't clench my jaw and pretend it's light. I say, this is heavy. Can you help me carry this for a while? And sometimes they do. And sometimes they can't. But just saying it makes the weight bearable. The new definition of strength is not the absence of fragility. It is the courage to be fragile. It is the wisdom to know when the armor is doing more harm than good. It is the trust that beneath the metal, you are not nothing. You are everything. The quiet exhaustion of always being strong is a pandemic of the soul, but it is not incurable. The cure is connection to yourself, to your pain, to others. The cure is the terrifying, beautiful act of letting go. You do not have to be the person who never breaks. You are allowed to be the person who breaks and rests and asks for help and cries and laughs and breaks again and mends, not with steel plates, but with the tender, strong scar tissue of a life fully lived. You were not born with armor. You do not have to die wearing it. The world does not need another unbreakable rock. The world needs you in all your fragile, complicated, glorious, human truth. Exhale. Let go. You are safe.